Because everyone's situation is different and new issues are arising all the time, this video won't give you a categorical yes/no answer. But it will give you some pointers on how to approach a conversation with your employer and whether you need to approach an employment lawyer or advisor. Remember also that these rights are for workers. If you're self-employed, the situation is different. The starting point is that government says that people should continue to work at home if possible. But if you absolutely cannot work from home, then the government's position is now that you should go into work maintaining social distancing where possible. Bear in mind that government guidance changes daily, so do check the current advice on working from home and social distancing. Depending on your reasons for being afraid to go into work, your employer may have a responsibility to let you take time off work. I'm going to go through the arguments you can use to convince them, but remember that, like most of employment law, in real life this is a negotiation. If you think your workplace is not adequately keeping you safe, remember that your employer has a duty to protect your health and safety. This means a duty to risk assess and provide PPE where necessary. There is specific government guidance on what this means in each sector. This may include that your employer has to provide you with special equipment or allow you to maintain a 2-meter distance from other people at all times. You should check the guidance for your type of job and make sure your employer is doing what they need to do to keep you safe at work. Sections 44 and 100 of the Employment Rights Act protects you if you refuse to go into work because of serious and imminent danger in the workplace. This could cover coronavirus, but it will depend on your situation. It is essential that your employer follows the government guidance on making workplaces safe. Are you or your dependents particularly vulnerable to coronavirus? Do you work for the NHS, or are you in care work or work in another high-risk job and are in contact with high numbers of patients with confirmed or suspected cases of coronavirus? Do you have the necessary protective equipment? If your answer to one of the first questions is yes and the last no, then you do not have to go into work. You will not be paid, but your employer cannot treat you unfairly or fire you for it. However, you should tell your employer in writing why you are refusing to come into work. Be as detailed as possible. Tell your employer why you refuse to go into work, why you consider you are in danger, and why you cannot come to work as long as these dangers persist. If you are at a higher risk of contracting coronavirus, not because of your job, but because of a medical condition, then you can use different arguments. If you or someone who lives with you has a pre-existing condition which makes you or them vulnerable to coronavirus, we've put a link to the NHS guidance with this video. If you are pregnant or over 70, you could argue that it would be a breach of your employment contract of the mutual duty of trust and confidence to force you to come to work. But remember that this does not mean that you'd keep your pay if you stay off work. If your illness amounts to a disability, you could also tell your employer that they need to let you stay at home as a reasonable adjustment under the Equality Act. What if you were shielding? Shielding means staying at home at all times and avoiding any face-to-face contact. This is for people who display the coronavirus symptoms, but also for anyone who is in the clinically extremely vulnerable category. You should have received a letter telling you that you need to shield or have been told this by your GP. If you are in this situation, you are better protected. The government's advice is very clear that you should not go into work. This advice is currently in place until the end of July. You can show the letter to your employer and you can be furloughed, or you can get statutory sick pay if you're shielding. Furlough would be more than statutory sick pay for most people, and so you can ask to be put on furlough if you are shielding and if you've been on furlough before the 10th of June. And there are some exceptions to this for parents, and it's worth checking the guidance below. There is no right to be put on furlough. Your employer can refuse to furlough you even if you are eligible. The government guidance is that public sector employees are discouraged from using the scheme. However, they are not ineligible, so you certainly should ask. If none of the above applies to you, but you're still worried about going into work, your employer may agree to let you take some leave so that you do not have to come in. Your employer may be willing to agree for you to take annual leave or some kind of unpaid leave like parental leave or a sabbatical, but remember that your employer has to agree to it. Now, for more information on all the topics discussed in this video, please see the links below.